Hi, welcome to Big Guy Boards. I'm Scott. This is going to be my review of the Firewire Dominator 2. I'll give a bit of background on why I got this board. I did a review on the new sweet potato. I really liked it. One of the things I really liked about that board was the fact that with the high volume versions, Dan Mann had actually made certain tweaks to foil and other areas of the board. Instead of just inflating it straight up, he'd kind of altered it to suit a heavier surfer. And I was interested, I was looking for a daily driver, and I was interested to see how the Dominator 2 went and whether Dan Mann actually tweaked the volume in this, or tweaked the dimensions in this as he increased the volume. Once I'd got it, I actually did a bit of research to find out whether he did that, but I couldn't find out anywhere. So I'd be really interested to hear in the comments if you know whether Dan Mann tweaks the dimensions and foil and things of the Dominator 2 when he blows it up in the same way he does with the sweet potato. I'll give a bit more detail on the board. So I'd class this as a hybrid shortboard, or some people might say it's a step down or like a daily driver. So it's a step down from a performance shortboard for good waves, but it's a kind of step up from a groveler, so it kind of sits in that middle ground. So you can kind of maneuver it a bit more like a shortboard, but it just goes in a weaker wave, which suits me in the UK. Generally, if I'm on a shortboard, it's usually a hybrid shortboard, just because of the waves are so weak. I'm going to talk a bit about the construction. This is made with helium-2 technology. It's the same construction method they had for the sweet potato that I reviewed recently. So there's lots of kind of drawbacks, but also lots of real positives with it. One thing I was looking at was the stock dimensions, and it was kind of between my volume. I'd usually ride a daily driver hybrid shortboard around 43, 44 litres. The 6.4 came in at 40.9. And then the step up from that just seemed a bit long for me, and I can't remember the volume, what it jumped up to, but I thought I'd go for the lower volume just to see what it was like. And it actually worked out quite well. I think in the similar way that EPS just feels slightly more corky, I think this construction does the same. It just feels slightly more floating, just gives you that extra 1.5 litres feeling of more volume. So that's really good, that's helped, and it doesn't feel, some EPS boards I think feel, after being used to riding PU, sometimes EPS just feels a little bit too light and floaty, but this didn't feel as bad. So generally, the feel of the construction method I quite like, and it gives a bit more float as well. A couple of drawbacks to it. Number one, speaking from experience from getting one of these repaired, you need to find someone who knows what they're doing. I got this repaired, and I had to get it repaired a second time because the first person that repaired it, I don't think had much experience repairing these, and they have a slightly off-white tint to the white. It's like a bluish kind of tint to it, I think, which if you don't know how to repair it and you try and repair it to make it go white, it just looks yellow, it looks horrible. So you need to find someone who knows how to repair it, which is quite hard to do. And the second thing is these boards do tend to go yellow in the sun. So I actually bought board sock for this. I did the same for my sweet potato. I just keep it covered whenever it's not in the water. If it's in my car or anywhere, I just keep the board sock over it to try and stop the exposure to the sun and stop it going yellow. It's got these parabolic rails as well. I think they kind of help with the kind of torsion as you're putting load in the board. I'm not going to go through all the fine details of the board. Number one, because I'm not an expert. Number two, you can find all that information in detail online in videos. Right, I'm getting rained on, but I'm going to carry on. Right, I'll talk about how this board actually goes. So as I mentioned, it goes in, it's got quite a big range. Starting at, depending on the power of the wave, probably chest high, maybe just slightly lower if the wave's got any kind of power to it. and up to well overhead. I probably had it in head and a half, maybe approaching double overhead. That's where I found the limit, and it just started to feel like I had a bit too much lift and just wasn't holding on the bottom turn. So at that point, if it's overhead, head and a half, that's where I'd start to be looking probably at more of a performance shortboard. Actually riding it, it feels really good. I think it has similar maneuverability to other similar hybrids I've ridden. So the Lost Uber XL, that was quite a while back, and then the Mata 2825. So they all feel quite similar. I did have quite a big space between trying them out, but they all feel similar level of maneuverability and kind of being able to just throw them around, which was really good. One big difference I did find with this is how to actually get it going down the line. So I find it doesn't really like a fatter wave. It likes a bit more shape to the wave, and it just doesn't feel like it wants to get up, and it doesn't feel like it has as much squirt as, say, the Lost Uber Driver XL. I think one of the reasons I like the Uber XL so much, as it's not just an inflated version of another board. Matt Bollas actually made lots of tweaks to that board to make it suitable for someone of his or my weight. And as I said in the intro, I'm not sure whether this one has just been inflated from the stock smaller one, like a stock 5.9 or 6.0, whether that's just been inflated or whether Dan Man's tweaked the dims. I'd say it feels like it's just been inflated up. Again, I'd love to hear in the comments if anyone's actually aware of whether that's happened or not. But overall, it's a really good board. I'll talk about the fins next. So I've heard a lot of people talk about the difference between riding this as a quad or a thruster. So I've experimented with both. I started off with a thruster setup as a 3-fin, just because that's what I'm used to. Generally, if I'm riding a board like this, I'm riding it as a thruster, which actually felt really good. And then for whatever reason, I think I heard a lot of people raving about it as a quad, so I thought, right, I'll give it a go, and it actually felt quite good. It gave that extra tiny little bit of squirt that I think the board was missing, but I didn't like the lack of the centre fin, which kind of, I think, gives a bit more pivot, which is just what I'm used to. So I think personal preference, I ended up going back to the thruster and then keeping it like that, but I know a lot of people that prefer it as a quad, and I know online there's a lot of talk about it going as a quad as well, so I think it's just worth experimenting with. The things I'm using are the Goliath XL set, so they're intended for anyone over 100 kilos. Basically, if you're 100 kilograms or more, it's very likely you're on the wrong size fin set, because they only go up to a certain size. So these are some of the only ones you can get for anyone over around 100 kilos. I've used a carbon construction just because the carbon just has a very slight more amount of kind of flex and pop, which I think this board needs just to give it that extra bit of squirt in lesser waves. And yeah, that's it.